Walters is the spot to be before and after opening day this upcoming Friday afternoon. Walters is located just across the street from the ballpark, right off South Capitol Street.
Littell ready. He kicks and pitches. Swinging a ground ball to first. Garcia boots the ball. Deflects off his glove right toward the second base bag. Crawford scores. 3-0 Phillies. Any chance for a double play lost when Garcia could not field the ball at all. The long hold. The kick and the pitch. Swinging a fly ball left field. Sending Marsh back toward the warning track. Reaches out, makes the catch, and then braces up against the fence. Brandon Marsh saves the day for the Phillies, and they win it 3-2.
And welcome to Nats Chat, along with Washington Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman of NatsJournal.com. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. Mark is at Citizens Bank Park, where the Nats have fallen to 3-2 in MLB's 2026 regular season. A 3-2 loss at the Philadelphia Phillies on Tuesday evening in Game 2 of a 3-game series. We on Tuesday evening, as anticipated, had something special, had something different. The Nats going with an opener. The opener strategy popularized by the Tampa Bay Rays in 2018, a season in which both current Nats general manager Anirudh Kalambi and current Nats manager Blake Butera were working for the Rays. The idea of an opener, as I'm sure many of you know, is for a reliever to start the game and go all out for an inning in facing the opposing team's first three batters, who presumably are three of the opposing team's best batters. The strategy for the Nats worked, but they lost the game. Pitching was not the problem. Offense was the problem. And how about how the game ended? Top of the ninth, James Wood with Nasim Nunez on second base and 2 outs hit a full count opposite field liner on which left fielder Brandon Marsh made a running backhanded catch on the warning track to end the game. It looked as if the game might be tied, but instead, the game came to an end. Mark, that ending was quite the tease. We thought that we might have some more 2026 Washington Nationals magic on display, but the late game magic was not to be.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Al. It really never felt throughout this game like the Nats were in it. And yet, there they were in the ninth, down by a run. And Nasim Nunez gets on base, and you're thinking to yourself, are they going to try to have him steal second with 2 outs? Do you risk ending the game with James Wood at the plate? Nunez got a good jump off Yohan Duran and got in a scoring position. And James Wood, we've talked a lot, and we can talk more tonight about the state of his swing right now, because at times it has looked awful. But he did in the previous at-bat smoke a ball right back up the middle that deflected off the pitcher. He wound up credited with a double on it. He's facing one of the toughest closers in the game in Duran in the ninth, but he worked a really good at-bat, got to a point that he got a pitch he could do something with. He hits it over 100 miles an hour, line drive to the opposite field. Like, that's exactly the kind of swing you want from James Wood in that situation. They're a couple inches away from at minimum tying this game, if not even taking the lead. And that's not really how the game felt throughout. I would have thought to myself, now that the Phillies were in control this whole game. It shows you they actually played a close, tight game, and this team is capable of being in it, even on a night when maybe it didn't feel like they played all that well.
Well, the Nats pitching so far in this series has done well. I mean, Foster Griffin in Game 1, what the Nats were able to cobble together here in this Game 2, this imposing Phillies lineup so far has had problems with Nats pitching. Now, with the Nats offense in this game, just 2 runs, 8 hits, which were 2 doubles and 6 singles, just 2 walks, 0 for 9 with runners in scoring position. We had seen the Nats have some real success with runners in scoring position during the 3 wins here. No such success in this game. And the Philly starting pitcher in this game was a guy making his MLB regular season debut, but a highly touted guy, Andrew Painter. The Phillies took him with the number 13 overall pick in the 2021 MLB first-year player draft out of a high school in Florida. Painter in this game, 1 run in 5 1/3 innings, 8 strikeouts, 1 walk. And the Nats were just not able to do much against him. Blake Butera spent a decent chunk of his postgame session with you guys talking about Painter and how the Nats just could not get anything going against him.
Look, he was the real deal. He's been touted for a while now. His debut was delayed several years because of injuries. This was a long time coming for him. He was supposed to be the next big hope for them to join that rotation with Wheeler and Nola and the others in their prime a few years ago. It's been delayed, but what we saw tonight suggests that the hype was warranted. He's legit. The stuff is outstanding, not just the fastball, but the off-speed stuff as well. A lot of swing and miss against him. They had a couple of chances, and as you pointed out, they couldn't really convert with runners in scoring position. But I think this is one of those you do acknowledge that this kid is going to be really good, and that was a tough assignment for this lineup to face him tonight. You would have liked to have a few better at-bats, maybe put the ball in play a little bit more, but I don't think the approach against him was all that bad. I think they were just overwhelmed by what looks to be one of the best young pitchers in the game.
Not many hard hit balls for the Nats in this game, although James Wood did have a few, as you mentioned. And regarding the double that Wood had in this game, so Wood for the game, Nats starting right fielder, number one batter, 1 for 5, RBI double, 2 more strikeouts, 1 run, 7th for the Nats, a 2-out RBI double to cut the Nats deficit to 3-2. Despite him having been down in the count at 1.02, and the double came via Wood hitting the ball off Phillies reliever Tanner Banks and into shallow right field. The double had an exit velocity of 106.9 miles per hour per Statcast. So no, he didn't lace it to a gap, but that was a well-struck ball resulting in a double. Nasim Nunez scores from first base on the play. I tell you, some really good base running from Nasim Nunez in this game. The infield single in the 9th and the stolen base, making things happen on the base paths. But regarding James Wood, and you had a post on X about a mechanical item that you are noticing with James Wood these days. Mark all of a sudden is Walt Riniak. I love this. But James Wood, it's been a very mixed first few games here for James Wood. Look, he has the homer. He had this double in this game. He has another double as well. But he overall is 3 for 22 with 3 walks and 11 strikeouts. The OPS 604. What do you make of what we've seen from James Wood so far?
Well, let me, say that I did qualify that tweet. The first words of it were, "I'm no hitting coach, but," okay. Look, I've followed baseball enough. I've watched enough. I think a lot of fans could probably see what I was seeing there too. His front shoulder and his front hip are just flying open. That's what you don't want as a hitter. It's usually the number one problem with a hitter who's in a slump. When you do that, you can't cover the outside part of the plate. You're out in front of everything. He just looks like he's overly aggressive in starting his swing before the pitch has even been delivered to him. And he talked about after the game that both that, but also recognizing that he's only going to get a handful of good pitches to hit over the course of a game. You hope for at least one pitch per at bat. You don't always even get that. And he feels like the biggest issue right now is he's just not doing damage when he does get one of those pitches. We've seen him take some strikes right down the middle. And I think that shows maybe that issue of just not feeling comfortable guessing up there, being late on fastballs ahead of breaking balls. And yet, I tweeted that thing and then he came back and had 2 really good at-bats after that. So I think I said one of these other days that we've been talking about him, he's always this close to figuring it out and getting it back. He homered in Chicago just when it looked like he couldn't get anything right. So he's always on the verge of figuring it out and still being able to do damage even when the swing doesn't look like it's in the right place. I think there are signs of it getting better. I don't think he's completely lost up there. I know some people have felt that way. And yes, some individual at bats, he looks lost, but then he puts together 2 like he did at the end of the game. And, let's be clear, Yohan Duran, one of the best in the game. You're talking 9th inning, 2 out, tying run in scoring position. The crowd's really into it for this guy. That was a good quality bat. He was taking pitches that he should have, swinging at the pitches that he should have, and he put a really good swing on that last one.
It's tricky, I feel like, with James Wood because the overall numbers so far are not good, and he did not end last season in a great way. And so you sort of tie those two things together and you say, okay, we know this guy is good, but is he great or is he just good? On the other hand, right now, if you're a Nats fan, when it comes to your concern budget, how much room do you have for James Wood, right? Dylan Cruz is at AAA. That's concerning. Robert Hassel III is at AAA. That's concerning. You have the Josiah Gray situation. You have a number of other young players who you're unsure about. CJ Abrams has an OPS of 513. It's worse than James Wood's. So it's how much time do I really want to spend worrying about James Wood? But yeah, it is important to keep in mind, as great as he was in the pre-All-Star break portion of last season, final few months were not so good. And, you see some flaws here early on and you're like, hey, why is there a carryover from last season? But of course, the talent is immense. And so you say to yourself, all right, he probably is going to be okay. And with all of the other concerns with this team, how much concern in my budget do I have left over to be worrying about a guy as gifted as James Wood?
Right. I don't put him in the top 3, concerns right now with this team. I think it's mild concern. And it's, as you point out, it's because of the way he finished last year, the fact that his spring wasn't all that great, and then how he's looked in these first few games. But as I said, within that, there are some really impressive moments that make believe and know that it is in there. I think with him, what we're going to have to figure out is he just going to be streaky? A lot of great hitters are streaky. Ryan Zimmerman was incredibly streaky over the course of his career. He could go for weeks and not have much going. And then once it clicked, he could carry a lineup for 6 weeks at a time. Maybe that's who James Wood is. You hope that there's more consistency as he gets more time in the league, gets more comfortable with everything. But maybe he is just destined to be a streaky hitter. Even at his best, he just may be a guy who strikes out a lot. And, we've noted this. Some of the best hitters in baseball are also among the strikeout leaders. That's not that uncommon in today's game. As long as he shows an ability to figure things out, to stay patient, as long as he's drawing walks, I think you worry about it less, and show that he can come out of these things and get hot at some point. I don't think there's a whole lot of reason to be concerned. You'd love for him to be brilliant from day one all the way through the season. That just may not be who he is, and that's okay. He can still be a great hitter and a great player who has great seasons, while understanding that there may be some slumps mixed in without it throughout the whole thing.
Something else I wonder about with Wood, too. When you are tall and you have long arms and long legs, it's very easy for your swing to get out of whack. Always felt like that was an issue with Josh Bell. Not that James Wood is Josh Bell, but like when you have a lot going on physically, right? You have a lot of equipment here. Things can go awry pretty easily. And I wonder about that with James Wood, maybe because he's so big, he's so physically imposing that he is prone to some mechanical lapses that can lead to some slumps.
Yeah, and that's why he's such an anomaly as a player. You don't normally see that kind of body and think to yourself, great hitter. You might think, hey, good power hitter, but probably not the kind of guy who's going to hit for a high average or have a great eye at the plate. Probably is going to have a lot of swings and misses. And so as we've seen with him, when he's locked in, he's as good as anybody. Aaron Judge, kind of similar in terms of the height. He's a little bulkier than James Wood is. But that's absolutely always a concern with anybody of that kind of height, with those kind of arms and legs. Can you repeat your swing and maintain those mechanics day in and day out? And yeah, he's dealing with some of that now, but we know the pedigree. We know the success he's had at every level he's played at, including the big leagues. I really think it's just a matter of time before he locks it in. And again, there have been 3, 4, 5 at-bats so far in these 5 games that you can see it in there. And so that tells me that he is going to be all right. And it's just a matter of sustaining that and finding that from at-bat to at-bat.
5 of the Nats' 8 hits in this game came from just 2 guys. I mentioned Nasim Nunez, a couple of singles for him to go with the stolen base. And Daylen Lile had a 3-hit game. He is the Nats starting left fielder and number 4 batter, 3 for 4 with a double and 2 singles. Lile in the Nats' 1-run 6 had a one-out single to right field, prompting a throwing error by right fielder Adolis Garcia to score CJ Abrams to cut the Nats deficit to 3-1. And let's credit Abrams. When he doesn't hustle, we bring it up. In this instance, his hustle perhaps forced that throwing error by Garcia. But, Daylen Lile, we have not talked about him, right? Cruz demoted, Hassel demoted, James Wood up and down. Here you have Daylen Lile, rather quietly, it feels like, off to a good start off the electrifying September that he gave us last season.
Yeah, he hasn't had the dramatic moments like he did last year that made us all perk up and notice what he was doing. But there is a little more consistency with him. He hits the ball hard. We have seen that. He hits it hard. He hits line drives, maybe better than anybody else on the team. He's been batting cleanup most games so far. I think everything's going to be fine there. I think what we saw from him, maybe he's not as elite as what we saw in September when he was the player of the month in the National League. But he looks legit, and that for the most part what we saw during that half a season for him last year is a true reflection of who Daylen Lile can be as a hitter. I think really with him it's more about getting better in the outfield. He's been in left field so far with Wood in right field when both of them have been playing defensively together. That's been the alignment. I think he wants to work on that. But he's got a good short compact swing. You talk about completely different body type from James Wood. He is capable of that short, compact swing that produces so many line drives. It was good to see him. Now, to be fair, the double he hit in this game, was a pop-up behind shortstop that Trey Turner somehow lost in the dusk, but goes in the books as a double. So good for Daylen Lile for taking advantage of that. And another example of the hustling, because, hey, you hit a pop-up, you might just casually go down the line. He was busting it on the off chance that something happened, and sure enough, he was able to coast into second base with a very cheap double.
Yeah, Lyle with an OPS now of 1,003. Al Galdi here to tell you about Window Nation's The More You Buy, The More You Save sale. But before that, the Window Nation look into the future.
That's part of understanding who Dylan is, making sure there's a good support system around him when he is in AAA. But he's very mature. He's a pro. He's a confident kid. We don't have any real concerns that that's going to be a part of this. And if we do, we told him, please, Paul and I sat in here with him. We're call us if you want to. Anytime. We'd love to get a phone call from you. We want to continue to make sure he feels supported and that we really believe in him.
Well, happy spring. Window Nation is ready for spring, and Window Nation wants Nats Chat podcast listeners to know that there's no better time to upgrade your home with great Window Nation windows than right now, as Window Nation is offering to Nats Chat podcast listeners the More You Buy, The More You Save sale. Save up to 50%. Get your windows with 0% interest for 5 years. During uncertain times, one of the best investments that you can make is investing in your home. So visit windownation.com now to book a consultation and tell Window Nation that Al Galdi sent you. That's windownation.com and tell Window Nation that Al Galdi sent you.
Today's show is sponsored by Strawberry.me. Let me ask you something. Do you think championship athletes got to the top by guessing? No, they had coaching. Every elite athlete has a coach watching their form, calling the plays, and spotting the blind spots they can't see themselves. That's how championships are won. So why are you trying to win in your career without a coach? You're grinding, hoping for the promotion, trying to read the politics, guessing your next move. That's amateur hour. If you want to perform like a pro, you need coaching. Strawberry.me matches you with a professional career coach who breaks down your game film. They help you negotiate the raise, navigate workplace politics, and execute a strategy that actually works. Stop riding the bench in your own life. Go to strawberry.me/podcast50 to get 50% off your first coaching session. Strawberry.me, because pros don't guess, they get coached to win.
Here's a swing and a fly ball to right. Wood going back to the warning track, looking up, and it's gone. Toward the right field corner. That's one of those Citizens Bank Park specials, not hit very far, but gets out of here for a solo home run. Got a hold of a sinking fastball, only 349 feet to right field. His first home run in a Phillies uniform, and the Phillies lead 2-0.
The opener strategy in this game. Lefty reliever PJ Poulin was the Nats opener, and he did quite well. A perfect bottom of the first in facing the Phillies numbers 1 through 3 batters in 3 ex-Nats, Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber, and Bryce Harper. And then Zack Littell came into the game. Blake Butera, during his postgame press conference on Monday night, was non-committal about Littell replacing Poulin in this game, but it was in fact Littell who came into the game. March 10th was when the Nats announced having signed Littell as a free agent. So, how ready he was for this outing, we just didn't know off him having signed with the Nats a few weeks ago. Littell in this game, mixed results, 3 runs in 5 innings. He gave up 6 hits, which were 2 home runs and 4 singles. He issued 2 walks. He recorded just 1 strikeout, but he threw a lot of strikes, 75 pitches, 53 strikes, 22 balls. So Littell in the bottom of the 3rd gave up a 2-out solo homer by Kyle Schwarber to right center field for a 1-0 Phillies lead. Littell in the bottom of the 4th gave up a 2-out opposite field solo homer by Adolis Garcia to right field for a 2-0 Phillies lead. And Littell in the bottom of the 5th allowed a run on back-to-back 1-out singles, a 1-out walk, and a 1-out fielding error by first baseman Luis Garcia Jr., who booted the fielding of a bases-loaded grounder by Bryce Harper on an 0-2 pitch. So Littell had Harper down 0-2, induced the grounder, and then Garcia booted the grounder. Littell obviously deserved better in that spot, although the bases were loaded, so we should note that. But what'd you think about the opener strategy, and what'd you think about how Zack Littell did?
I think under the circumstances, it worked about as well as you could have hoped. Poulin was great. That's exactly what you want in that kind of situation. He came out throwing strikes. He retired the side on 9 pitches. He struck out Schwarber. He pretty much had Harper, out in front of everything. I think he threw him 3 straight sweepers, and that's all it took to get him out. So, that strategy was great. And with Littell, you kind of knew all along, he's able to pitch, but he's probably not all the way there quite yet. And I think that's what we saw from him. And he acknowledged as much. He said, look, I'm not going to make any excuses, but you could read between the lines, and he's admitting he's not quite there where he should be yet. You noted the other night how he does give up a lot of home runs, even when he's been successful. Gave up 2 solos. That was really the only damage off him in this game. And you can live with that. I didn't necessarily think he'd be able to give him 5 innings and 75 pitches. So I think that was a little bit of a bonus for him to be able to go that far and do that. But as he said, he still needs to clean some things up and perfect it. He wasn't really satisfied with how it went tonight. But he also said, he told Simon Matthews, the pitching coach, afterwards, if that's his quote unquote worst start, or if that's him at his worst, he will absolutely take that. 3 runs in 5 innings, and the 3rd run maybe not even really his fault. So I think under the circumstances, given the late signing and everything else, I thought he did fine. Hopefully what you see now, each successive start, he looks better, sharper, able to go deeper in the games. And then we'll see. I don't know if we're going to see the same strategy again with the opener. It may have to do with who the opponents are. Are they lefty heavy at the top of the lineup? I don't know if it's something that'll regularly happen with Littell. Maybe they would use it when Jake Irvin pitches or somebody else. It'll be interesting to see, was this a one-time situation, a unique set of circumstances, or is it something they would use more regularly?
Well, at least now the team is open to the strategy, is open to the opener, a strategy that came onto the scene in 2018. We get to 2026, and at last our Nats are open to the opener. Look, Zack Littell has been a good pitcher the last few seasons, so I think it is really interesting to think about, if he's that guy this season, the Nats have themselves a good pitcher. Littell, he's been both a starter and a reliever, has been solely a starter the last 2 years, 29 starts each of the last 2 regular seasons. During that stretch, 6 wins above replacement per Baseball Reference, ERA 3.73, ERA plus of 1.11. So he's been durable, he's been effective, and if he could be that guy for the Nats, that would be great. I was thinking about the opener from this perspective too. So you often will hear closers especially talk about how, hey, to be a closer, right, it takes a certain mentality. Not everyone has the right mindset to be a closer. I would think the same thing applies for an opener. You as a reliever have to have the right mindset for that. But I also would think that you as a reliever could get juiced up for being an opener. This is a significant assignment. You are being asked to open the game. You're facing the team's top 3 batters. I would think that that's appealing to at least some relievers, maybe even many relievers, the opportunity to open games. Yeah,
and PJ Poulin described it as you really have to treat that first inning like it was the 7th or the 8th in a tie ball game, which is, of course, what it is. You're facing some big-time hitters. Those runs count just as much as any other. And so he did get a little practice. We didn't really think much of it at the time. But if you remember, in their final exhibition game at Nats Park against the Orioles, it was a bullpen game. Well, Poulin was the first one. He pitched the first inning. Then again, there wasn't an opener situation, but it did. Maybe they knew in the back of their minds there was a chance they were going to do this. And so it kind of got them at least knowing what the routine is like for something like that. I don't know if they showed it on TV or not, but typically the starting pitcher, they warm up in the bullpen, then they'd come into the dugout. They would watch the top of the first while the team's hitting from the dugout. Poulin stayed in the bullpen, warmed up as if he was coming in like it was later in the game. When the Nats went down in the top of the first, the bullpen gate swung open. He jogged in just like it was the 6th or the 7th or the 8th. I think, I'm sure everyone has their own way of doing it, but for him, I think that's what made it feel the most comfortable, the most normal for him to treat that like it was any other relief appearance.
So game 3 for the Nats at the Phillies Wednesday afternoon at 1:05. Cade Cavalli will be the Nats starting pitcher. So we're now through the Nats rotation for the first time here. How would you evaluate Nats starting pitching? We'll include Zack Littell as a starting pitcher so far. How would you evaluate Nats starting pitching through the first turn of the rotation?
I would call it solid. Not great, but not awful in any way. I think they all are still trying to build up. You would hope Cavalli, after, didn't get out of the 4th inning on opening day, that he can go a little bit deeper, be a little bit sharper. Michaelis obviously was the one who probably struggled the most. That was the blowout loss to the Cubs. Irvin, I thought was pretty good, was sharp. Foster Griffin, I would say probably the most impressive of anyone so far, given the circumstances, the lineup he was facing, his first big league start after being in Japan for 3 years. And Littell, again, he was fine. They've all given their teams a chance for the most part. It hasn't been their fault that they haven't won, a couple of these games, but you'd like to ideally see more than 5 innings and more, better than 2 or the 3 runs that some of them have given up. So you'd like them to go a little deeper, take a little more control of the game. I think the bullpen, with really only the exception of the one blowout loss in Chicago, I think the bullpen's been excellent so far. And that has given them both the opportunity to win 3 games so far, but it kept them in this one. As I said, it never really felt like they were in it, but they were, and they gave themselves a chance to rally and have a shot in the bottom of the 9th. And the bullpen, I'm going to include Poulin in that, and then the guys who came in after that, Waldichuk, they really did put them in a good position to give them a chance.
Yeah, this distorts the stats because relief pitching ERA for the Nats includes the Zack Littell outing, and starting pitching ERA for the Nats includes the PJ Poulin outing, but such is life.
Today's show is sponsored by Strawberry.me. Let me ask you something. Do you think championship athletes got to the top by guessing? No, they had coaching. Every elite athlete has a coach watching their form, calling the plays, and spotting the blind spots they can't see themselves. That's how championships are won. So why are you trying to win in your career without a coach? You're grinding, hoping for the promotion, trying to read the politics, guessing your next move. That's amateur hour. If you want to perform like a pro, you need coaching. Strawberry.me matches you with a professional career coach who breaks down your game film. They help you negotiate the raise, navigate workplace politics, and execute a strategy that actually works. Stop riding the bench in your own life. Go to strawberry.me/podcast50 to get 50% off your first coaching session. Strawberry.me, because pros don't guess, they get coached to win.
Runner goes the pitch. Wood with a swing and a ground ball off the left of Banks. Deflects past Harper, the first baseman, out into right field. Nunez to third's coming home. Throw to the plate. He is safe at the plate with a headfirst dive past the tag attempt by Real Muto. And the second is Wood, and it's now a 1-run game. It's now the Phillies 3 and the Nationals 2.
All right, we have not yet on this podcast talked about the ABS challenge system. And the Nats in this game on Tuesday evening found themselves in an interesting predicament. Out of ABS challenges a mere 2.5 innings into the game. As I'm sure most people listening know by now, each team gets 2 challenges to start the game immediately after a pitch is thrown, and with no help from the dugout in deciding, like, this is on you, the pitcher, the catcher, or the batter can challenge the bowler's strike call by tapping his helmet or hat. You asked Blake Butera during his post-game session with you guys about this, the Nats being out of ABS challenges so soon into the game. What'd you think about that? What'd you think about what Butera had to say?
Yeah, so to preface this, the subject came up pregame with him, and he talked about how they're still kind of devising their strategy, and they want a little more of a sample before they know what's working and what's not working. But for the most part, he felt like that he can trust his guys to know when to do it and when not to. And then what happened in the game? Keibert Ruiz challenged one in the, I think it was the bottom of the second, but I think it was nobody on base was the first batter of an inning. He got it wrong. And then Luis Garcia challenged one at the plate in the top of the third. And again, it wasn't really a big, meaningful spot with guys on base or deep in the count. I think it was early in the count. He got it wrong as well. They weren't particularly close. And now all of a sudden you're out of them for the rest of the game. That's where you have to be more, cautious with your usage. If you are 100% convinced it was a bad call, okay, you do it. But I think, as Butera said, generally in that moment, you're going to think you're right. And of course, sometimes you're not. So he did say they may have to rein them in a little bit and say, okay, if it's early in the game, only do it if there are runners on base or it's clearly a significant moment. It's not just about you yourself with nobody on and not a real situation of consequence. Once you get later in the game and you still have them, yeah, you use it a little more frequently and don't worry as much about the game situation. You don't want to get burned like they did. And it cost them because late in this game, in the top of the ninth, Joey Wiemer is up in a 1-run game, and he took a pitch that was called a strike. He reacted like he knew it was a bad call. He couldn't do anything about it. When you watch the replay, it was way below the zone. Just an egregiously bad call, and he couldn't do anything about it. Now, who knows if that changes the outcome of his at-bat or even the game, but you'd sure like to have the ability to challenge it in a spot like that. So I think as they play more and get more comfortable with this, you may see Butera and the coaches tell these guys, hey, don't do it early in the game unless it's really a situation that's meaningful. Save those up because you don't want to get to the end of the game and not have one when you really need it.
One of the really interesting things about the ABS challenges has been that players have been wrong a lot. They have not been right as much as I think they thought they would be. If you just go by spring training games, just 53% of ABS challenges were successful. That's it, 53%. 1,844 challenges, just 53% were successful. It's not so easy. I bet these umpires are like, you see, guys, it's not so easy. But, you would think the percentage would be higher than that these guys would be on it. And especially because it is, a selection bias, right? You're picking supposedly the most egregiously wrong calls. And instead, so far, it's, almost like just a 50-50 proposition.
Yeah, and I think from what I remember hearing, that's about what it was at AAA before they brought it to the big league. So it's kind of holding steady what they saw in the minor leagues first. And I agree with you. I for any umpires out there that thought, oh, this is going to make us look bad. No, I think the beauty of ABS is that it's going to highlight how good most of the umpires are on all these calls that the catcher and the hitter and even the viewer thinks they got wrong. No, actually, they did get a lot of them right. But what it's also going to do, it's going to expose the handful of really bad umpires. And I hate to single them out, but I'm not the first over the last 2 decades who's done this. C.B. Buckner has been widely known around baseball for a long time as one of the worst at a lot of things, but especially at ball strike calls. And if you saw the game that he did in Cincinnati against the Red Sox, he had, I think, 10 pitches challenged and 8 overturned, including back-to-back with Eugenio Suarez at the plate and the bases loaded. And the crowd was so into it because that was a really meaningful spot in the game. I remember thinking all along what ABS is going to do, in addition to everything else, it's going to finally give concrete evidence for who the worst umpires are. And then it's up to Major League Baseball to do something about it. What the players have always asked, they understand it's a hard job and that these guys are the best in the world. And most of them are really, really good at it. And everybody's going to miss 1 or 2 here or there. That's what ABS is for. What they've always wanted more than anything else is for the umpires to be accountable for themselves. And it has always felt like too many of these guys can survive for 2 decades, 3 decades, despite reputations for not being good and making a lot of mistakes. Maybe this will give Major League Baseball the ammunition to actually make some changes, demote some guys, or head them off into early retirement. I'll be really interested to see what happens as a result of that. That's in the back of my mind, I think, one of the side benefits of instituting ABS now.
You tell us what you think. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email us, including if you are interested in sponsoring the show. We'd love to have you on board. Contact the man who runs the podcast, Tim Shovers, or email address natschatpodcast@gmail.com. We have a website you can check out too, natschatpodcast.com, at which you can purchase a Nats Chat Podcast t-shirt. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
Now the 2-2. Called strike 3, tap the helmet.